Hello, welcome to an educational moment. I'm your host, Dr. Pat Dingle. There's going to be a special program for you today. Of course, we know it's African American History Month, Black History Month. I prefer African American History Month. Before I continue with the program, I want to take a moment to remember and to honor the memory of the late Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston was a phenomenal singer and actress in her own right. Certainly, I want to extend my sympathy to her family, and I also want to add to the crowd of people who are singing her praises, particularly as it relates to her phenomenal singing voice. So again, in memory of Whitney Houston and all that she did to raise the consciousness of America through her beautiful singing and her acting. The program tonight is going to be a panel of discussion. The theme that I hope you will enjoy is entitled African Americans. Where are they going from here? I have two panelists, two very special guests who have consented to be with me tonight here on the program. Eric Harting and also Tayland Woodard. Welcome, Eric.
See you, daughter.
Nice to see you. Welcome, Tayland.
Hello, welcome, Dr. Dingle.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. As normal, I have given you some idea of what I'm going to ask you prior to you coming on the show so that you could be a little prepared. But of course, you know that I might ask you something that's not on the paper. Okay. Eric, you're a student at Sarasville High School. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I am a senior at Sarasville High School.
A senior?
A senior, man.
Oh, that's important, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. I like to help out in the community a lot. I do a lot of community service hours with some, so others might eat in DC. I like to help out with youth football and basketball programs. I love to watch Sports Center, ESPN. I'm in love with sports.
All right. Okay, so you love sports and you do a lot of community work. That's pretty important when you're just starting out on in your career.
Yes, ma'am.
And also going to college, because I know colleges and also employers look for workers who are very strong on community service and also have a sense of commitment to our society. So that's great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alan, you're a sophomore at Bowie State University.
Yes, I am.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm also a communications major at Bowie State University, so I like working with cameras, TV. I also enjoy watching the news. I like to stay up to date and current, and I like sports as well.
Okay, so we had two sports enthusiasts. Very good. Now, I must admit that I'm not as great, or let's say this, I'm not as caught up on all the sports items as you two, so I'm glad that we have two sports enthusiasts here. All right. For the panel discussion tonight, I'm hoping that Eric and Tayland will give some insights, and I'm sure that you will, in terms of their experiences as African Americans, as well as talking about the direction that African Americans in our country should go. Let's see now. First of all, I'm going to go to Tayland since I asked you a question first, Eric. Tayland, what African American has inspired you or influenced you as a young African American?
Particularly my mom and dad, but
Okay.
also as well Frederick Douglass. I enjoy reading up upon him, and also I like the fact that he was an educator and he took the opportunity to educate himself. So that helps me want to keep going on, move further in my education.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's commendable that you want to move further in your education, because certainly that spurred me on when I was a young person. Now, you mentioned that your mother and father have inspired you.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that, Tayland?
Growing up, they always were on top of me, always telling me, do this, do that, get in your books, get in your books. You're going to need your books in the future. It's key. And as I see now, it's coming true. I can see those that aren't educated and they're not doing as well for themselves as they could be if they were educated. So I thank them for that.
Well, I think that's a very good point that you make, is that adults, African Americans who have experienced things that perhaps you have not experienced at the time, that they act as guideposts for you, and they also act as mentors to encourage you to follow a path, and also to get certain experiences, because they know from experience that these particular experiences are crucial. So I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things we do on this particular show is that we try to encourage all young people to improve themselves, and also we try to give insight into what it's really like. My show is the real deal. I don't put on airs or say things that I know aren't true, because everybody wants to be successful. And being successful involves knowing what is the way to navigate the career, navigate college, navigate your educational environment in order to be successful. So thank you for sharing that. Now, Eric, who's inspired you?
I will have to say my mom and my dad too.
All right.
But also the great speaker, Martin Luther King, and the great intellectual mind of Malcolm X has also been a great inspirational message in my life.
Okay, so the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
know something, I'm glad you brought it up, but you know, in our society, they sort of dropped the Reverend, they done dropped the doctor. You know, what is that all about? Here we have a brother. We have a brother. That's bad, right?
A bad brother.
The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was bad. He was courageous. He had a brilliant mind. And yet, when you hear about him today, you don't know all that, because all the titles are dropped off. So I'm going to say Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And how does he inspire you? How has his legacy inspired you, Eric?
The way that he taught, not violence but words. I have never been in a fight, in any physical fight. I mean, I listen to every word he has to say, every speech he said. I listen to every word. It's not about violence. It's all about what you can say with your words that can make a difference. Okay. And I believe that 100%.
Okay. So being able to be articulate is important to you. And I agree with that. I think I tell students every day, you don't have to curse people out. You're telling me you don't have a good enough vocabulary. Why don't you learn some SAT words and expand your mind, and you will be able to say what you need to say, and you don't have to use a lot of profanity. So I appreciate you saying that. Now, you also said that you had someone else inspired you. I know you said the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and also you said
Malcolm X.
Malcolm X. And Malcolm X was a brilliant man as well. How does Malcolm X inspire you?
I loved Malcolm X's teachings. He was a very, very well-spoken person. He took a different approach, other approach than Martin Luther King, but I think his approach, it benefited him because of the way he was. He was a man that didn't like to take certain things from certain people. I really respect that from him.
And I think I like the point you brought up, Eric, that people are different,
right, and
they take different approaches. And this is important because look at Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby is a humorous person, and he looked at life, I assume, from a humorous perspective. He was able to have people laugh, at issues, when he was doing his comedy. So I think that's a good point, that we're all different. We're all different in terms of our philosophy sometimes, and we're also different in terms of our approach. Basically, we all have certain features, we have certain abilities, and of course, it's very important to use our abilities. Society pays for people to be unique, not the same. I teach my students that at school. It's all right to know how to function in a workplace. However, it's your uniqueness in terms of your thought, your uniqueness in terms of your style, that really will serve you well. Talent.
Yes.
I want to know, do you have any particular African American role model that you can think about from history? Now, you mentioned Frederick Douglass. Did you want to give us a little insight and a little more about, you told me that you like how Frederick Douglass educated himself. Do you want to give me a little more information about it? Are there any other role models you could think of? And did you want to expound or even add more to what you said about Frederick Douglass?
Um, there's no individuals other than Frederick Douglass in particular. There's a lot of role models as a whole, as he mentioned, Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King. But as far as Frederick Douglass, I like the fact that he took the time to educate himself and the effort, because back then they didn't have all the opportunities we had, and they didn't have it as easy as we had. They didn't have all the computers and this, and back then they were really trying to keep blacks away from education. They weren't trying to give them the education, give them the books, so he had to take it upon himself. He had to fight for it. He really didn't have the easy route as we have today.
That's a very good point, that a lot of times you have to persevere and you have to be committed and you have to be strong-willed in order to get from point A to point B. One of the things that I learned as a student of African American history from Dr. Sharon Harley at the University of Maryland College Park, I learned from her that freed African Americans actually voted sometimes to tax themselves just so they could have schools. And I learned that with African Americans, education was very, very important. And yet in our society, a lot of times, there are those who suggest that we are not interested in education. So that was a great point of illumination for me, that African Americans were willing to tax themselves to have schools. And also, some of the soldiers actually helped to start schools, according to, I didn't look that up for tonight, but according to my recollection, that some of the African American soldiers also started schools. Now, Eric, what about you? Are there any people today who inspire you that you can think of? No, we're talking about African. It's the African American History Month,
Right.
and are there any individuals that you can name right now who also inspire you, or you see them as role models that you would like to pattern your life after?
Well, I always seen the great Patrick Haley
Okay.
as a role model.
Mm-hmm.
He was slave when he was young.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he graduated from Holy Cross University. He went to Loyat University in Belgium. He was the first African American to ever get his PhD. Everyone thinks W.E.B. Du Bois was, but it was Patrick Haley.
Mm-hmm.
He became the dean at Georgetown University. A few years later, he became the president at Georgetown University.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
And then his influence helped so many people out that they named him one of the second founders of the school.
Wonderful. Now, that's very interesting. And Eric, I like the detail that you went into on this particular person who really interests you, said Patrick Haley. And I'm sure that all of us have people who inspire us, and as they inspire us, or the story about them inspires us, we remember it. And of course, we want to make sure that we also acknowledge women in the African American history. I'm a 2010 visiting scholar of the from the history makers in Chicago, Illinois. And one of the fascinating things that I learned is that the African American woman had a great deal to do with the civil rights movement and how they used the clubs that they had. And they get on the phone and they call those club members. And so, you know what, that's cool. I just, in order to be active politically and in order to be successful to drive, say, a movement, you have to have a good communication system. So I was just fascinated by that. And one of the things that I want to say about African American history, Black history, is that as a people, we need to learn more about our history. And also, we need to understand that history is from the perspective of whoever writes it, and that you really have to be striving, as you said, Tayland, to educate yourself in order to get a more encompassing view of history. For example, I'm trying to think about, oh, I know. The fact that there, for example, the issue with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King being the pivotal figure in the civil rights movement. My understanding, based upon a book by Roy Wilkins, is that they initially had someone else who was going to do the speech, I think, in Washington, and who was going to be basically the leader. But at the time, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was gaining, he was becoming more and more famous and gaining momentum. And so those folks with Roy Wilkins realized that maybe they should join forces. And so at that point, they made a change. And so being at the right place at the right time, you can change history. And so something that's very important for us to understand as African Americans is that a lot of times we see the beautiful I have a dream speech, or we see some pivotal moment in history. For example, the Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat on the bus. But actually, we realize that a lot of these pivotal movements in history are also strategic movements. They didn't just happen, but somebody was using a strategy. For example, SNCC, the African American Youth Group that focused on civil rights, they were led by Miss Baker. And so she had a lot of experience. And so she was guiding them along. And one of the things that I learned at the History Makers is that one of the most successful things they did was they documented what they were doing. And so because they were documenting with photographs and sometimes, I think someone said that sometimes they staged a photograph, but I'm not sure. But the point was that they were able to communicate through images. So I think that's something important for us to also remember, that it doesn't just happen, but somebody is being strategic. I like this discussion. How you gentlemen feeling tonight?
I feel good.
Feeling good?
Feeling great.
Oh, we gotta have you feeling great tonight. Good. Okay. What I want to say, I want us to think about right now. We understand about our history, and we can always be learning more about our history. But what I want to do now is I want to digress a little bit, and I want to get your opinions on where should we be going from here? African Americans in America, where are we going? Who'd like to address that issue first?
I'll go first. Doesn't
You,
mind.
you
You don't
go
mind?
ahead. I don't mind.
You don't mind?
Okay, Eric.
I think it starts with the youth.
Okay.
I know me personally, I grew up in a yes ma'am, no sir, yes sir household. And I think the youth today don't have any respect for their ancestors. You know, you see a lot of kids walking around, you know, just doing anything, whatever. You're in school, they don't respect them. The teachers don't want to teach them because they don't show any respect to them. I think in order for us to grow as a African American great country.
So the point you made, Eric, is you said you're not seeing sometimes the respect from
Right.
young people for older people and for their ancestry. So go ahead. You're making a good
I don't
point.
think it's just the respect. I think education plays a strong role in it.
Okay.
I think discipline plays a strong role in it.
Okay.
You know, just a desire to be something other than a statistic. You want to be, you know, I know me personally, I don't want to be one that, okay, he's in jail. One every 4 kids in Washington go to jail. You know, I don't want to be that. I want to go to college. I want to get an education so I can be one of these people that sit on the talk shows and talk about what can we do next to help our community? What can we do next to help our race?
Well, I think that's a very good point that you're making. And I also see that you understand what it takes to be successful.
Yes, ma'am.
You're showing me that you have a goal and that you have a desire to be somebody doing something in the community and being a positive, having a positive impact in society. And I think that's excellent. And I think that is where it has to start. When I was in school, that's what I had to do. I always thought about trying to move forward, trying to be somebody. Right. Not just be the body, but be somebody. Right. Now, as you know, our show is about 30 minutes. So I want to go to Tayland now and ask Tayland, what do you think?
I like to thank Eric for what he said, brought to my
Thanks,
attention.
Eric.
We do have all of those problems, and I think the problem is because we don't have too many individuals today in our black community. Everybody wants to be the same. Everybody wants to run after this person does what this person does. And to fault for that is the people that they look up to. Like the younger generation, they're more geared towards all the hip-hop artists. Oh, they're doing this, getting all these women, living a life. But we need individuals to step up and be the good role models for them. It's okay that they listen to rap. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but those individuals that they look up to give them a bad outlook and give them the wrong outlook, the wrong images.
Well, I think your point is well taken, Tayland, because what you're saying is that the image of a rap artist, there are many, many excellent rap artists. However, there are some individuals who have a lifestyle that is not a productive lifestyle. It's not productive for them in that perhaps where it leads them and what they're involved in. Moreover, it doesn't always give the correct image. If you're showing somebody that you're making a lot of money, but you owe a lot of people money, or you're doing something that's negative with your money, then certainly that's not giving you the correct image. And also these positions are sort of high profile. This is something that everybody's not going to be a rap artist because it's like supply and demand. It's like the NBA with 4,000 basketball players. Well, we have a whole lot more people in our society than 4,000. So if we only have 4,000 slots for NBA basketball players, then everybody's not going to be an NBA player. So your point about being able to see the reality, and that's what I think you were saying, is very, very important. Well, are there any other directions or points that you want to make about where you think African Americans should be going? Okay, you said something about having good role models, learning to, I'm going to say it this way, to look behind the curtain.
Very good point.
Look behind the curtain before you jump behind the curtain and see what it really entails to do or be what you're desiring to be. You need to get some more information to make a wise decision. So that's how I'm going to place it. And Eric, what were you getting ready to say?
I think America is blind to certain aspects of African American life.
Okay.
I spent one weekend in Baltimore City, in a part of the city they call Baby Iraq.
Okay.
And when I was there, I honestly thought I was living in Iraq.
Did
I
you?
mean, they had vacancies where it looked blown up and there was people actually living in them.
Wow.
So when you see that and they're lighting candles, and you know, during Super Bowl, it was Super Bowl weekend, that's during February, and that's like, you know, the coldest month of the year. You have people living and things like that. And then you see, I'm not saying we help like Red Cross and all these little foundations that we have to help outside our country.
Exactly. Yes.
I'm not saying none of that's wrong. Like, you know, how we helped Haiti or how we help any tragedy outside this country. But I think we have the same stuff going on in our backyard every single day that we should help out them a little bit more than we do.
Okay. Well, Eric, that's an excellent point. Tayland, you made excellent points tonight too. I've gotten a note from the director that our time is running out. We're going to have another conversation with you two gentlemen. You've been quite excellent tonight. And certainly I want to thank you, Eric, and thank you, Tyler,
You're welcome.
for coming on the show. I want to thank our television audience. We had a discussion tonight about African Americans in America. Where are we going? I'm your host, Dr. Dingle, and this has been an educational moment. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you the next time.